Welcome, everybody. Get situated here. Okay. Welcome to Community Fit, and in particular, Stress Reset. I'm James, and I'll be your host teacher for today. This week in Stress Reset, this week in Community Fit, we've been covering senses and how vision, kinesthetic, felt, sense, sound, affects our experience of reality. And we're going to continue along that same vein today before we make a pivot next week and explore something different. So let's start off with some breathing. We're going to do some revisiting of some things that we covered on Wednesday. And today we are going to have one of my favorite meditations that I created, all about discovering location and orientation. Orientation meaning, where am I in the world and where am I in my body? Location, here I am. Orientation, which has a lot of benefits, a lot of different ways. Movement quality. So if you're an exerciser, if you are an athlete of some sort, you've got that. Embodied leadership of here I am, and I don't need to worry about all the rest of the stuff. If you're doing a meeting, if you're doing a talk, if you are having an important conversation, being able to locate and orient yourself, super, super important. And relationships, relationship with your own body and your own self. What's going on? What is this thing that I feel? And relationships with other people. I am fully present in my own body, so I can be fully present with you. So lots of bang for your buck and a very, very simple thing. And I want to sort of demystify meditation. This isn't going to be a difficult meditation. This is going to be a very felt sense meditation, continuing right along with what we've been playing with this week. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll invite you to take in an inhale, let out an exhale. And continuing along with the vein of sensory explorations, let's start off with just listening to the sound of our own breath. It can go in through the nose, out through the mouth, whatever works best for you. One more. You get to take an inventory. How do you feel right now? What does your body feel like? What does your thought body or your thoughts feel like? How about your emotional body or what's percolating up inside of you? Just paying attention to that, just sort of in the vein of what we've been exploring, and noticing how that shifts and changes throughout today's practice. Now, continuing along with the breath, instead of simply listening, or instead of listening, maybe you want to put a hand on your chest or hands on the side of your ribs or lay up next to something and feel your rib cage and your lungs move as you breathe. One more of those. Then, if one of those is hard for you, if it's hard to stay with the sound of your breath or to sense and feel, kinesthetically feel your own breath, stick with that thing. Or you can follow me into the next exploration. This one comes from Dr. Peter Levine, who created somatic experiencing, who is the Harvard University of trauma, anxiety, and stress work. This one is called the VOO breath, VOOO. Again, that's VOO, VOOO breath. So this is what it's going to sound like. It's sort of mixing breath with a very particular type of humming, which we explored again on Wednesday. So I'll give you an example, and then we're going to do a few rounds together. The sound we're trying to make is VOO, VOOO. So take an inhale, just watch. Boo. Super simple. Again, it's only silly to the ignorant. So if you're somewhere where you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for that, or if you're in your office and you're like, I'm going to disturb people, maybe just continue with the breathing and the feeling. But if you're in a place that feels safe enough and inviting enough to do the VOO breath, we're going to try 3 of those. So together, we're going to do an inhale, VOOO. Ready? Everyone's going to be on different timing, so you don't need to follow me per se. I'm going to do 3 repetitions. Your breath might be shorter, it might be longer. It's for you to decide. So inhale. Boo. Pro tip, let the V come from up in the head, and can the O sound come from down below? 2 more. Boo. If you're just joining us, we're taking in an inhale and we're creating the sound VOO, V-O-O-O. We have 1 more repetition. Inhale. Ooh. Just take a little inventory, noticing what you notice. Maybe you even want to drop it into the chat. What words come up for you? What do you notice? For me, I feel more grounded. I feel more settled. I feel a little wider. It's like if I was going to paint a picture, it's like the cells in my body have been shaken a little bit, but I'm more aware of the individual cells of my body. It's like I'm clearer. So we've got a relaxed coming through. Great. So if that's a feeling you like, that is something that you can resource later. I can just listen to the sound of my breath. I can feel my body breathing. If I want to get a little more particular, I can do all of that and add a very distinct sound to it. V-O-O-O-O-O-O-O. That ooh sound is prevalent in chanting and meditations. So it's a wisdom tradition that's been with us for a very, very long time, and a kinesthetic feeling within that. Now, let's continue on. Let's continue on with sort of waking up the eyes a little bit. So keep all of the bones in our body relatively still here, and let our eyes paint the wall up and down. Then we'll go side to side, and then we'll make circles. So we're going to go up and down. We're going to go 3 up and 3 down, 3 left and right, 3 circles, 3 circles. Ready? No bones in my body gets to move as my eyes paint going up and paint the wall down. They'll meet in the front, to the left, and to the right. If you feel some agitation coming up, maybe a little breathing, a little settling. Circles. And reverse. And center. What came up for you there? The reason I gave you that, if you feel anxious, unsettled, disrupted, maybe breathe or settle into that, is because that's what I was experiencing. So my eyes went left and right. There was like a subtle agitation. And being able to notice those subtle agitations is as important as being able to reset or relax, right? Knowing when being able to interpret and perceive subtle shifts in your nervous system feel important. So if you're like, nope, didn't feel anything, I encourage you to maybe play with that. Does that action settle you a little bit or ramp you up a little bit, because it certainly isn't like status quo. No one walks around like painting the walls with their eyes all day long in circles. Like that's just not something we do. So there is a nervous system felt response, and your job as curious explorers of your experience should get really adept at paying attention to subtle shifts, so that way you're not shocked or only paying attention to big shifts, right? I feel fine or I feel stressed. I feel fine or I feel depressed. It's like, well, can I find when I'm moving into overexcitement or moving into a depressed state? So that way, maybe I can come up and utilize some of these strategies before it's too much. I noticed I was holding my breath when I was moving my eyes, totally common, me too. Holding the breath is a sign of nervous system shifting, right? And more particular, it's often like sympathetic nervous system or fight or flight nervous system, because breathing, soft breathing is a resource that I don't have a luxury of if the lion is walking into the room, right? It's only when I'm safe that I can concentrate on that breathing. So eye things. Now, let's move into some ear stuff. So I want you to just take and do like a little generic massage on your ears, just kind of moving through, hitting some acupressure points as you go. So there is some relaxation that's going on here. Here's another one for you. You can take your pinkies. You can gently put them into your ear canal and gently push forward. So it's a gentle in and a gentle forward. That helps to resolve or soften some of the jaw tension there. Couple more breaths. Then from there, if your room has enough ambient noise that you can hear something besides like a generic hum somewhere, right? Like here I have a sliding door open and I can hear bird song, and I've got a fan going, so I can hear the fan. I can hear street noise coming from out the door. So I have enough stuff that I can pinpoint. If you're like, nope, there's really nothing, we'll get there. What I want you to do is just start to pay attention to the sounds in the room. What do you hear? What distinctly do you hear? Pay attention to it like a symphony, all of the sounds together, and then pick the instruments apart. For me here, that would be the bird song versus the fan versus the street noise versus my voice versus ambient noise. So I've got all these different instruments playing, or I can listen to the symphony of the instruments. If you don't hear enough, can't discern enough, I want you to take your fingers and you can either just rub them together and get like that going, or some gentle, quiet snaps going. It's just something that you can begin to hear and pinpoint. I'm going to continue to use this example, but you can use your symphony or the instruments in the room. And I want you to now begin to listen exclusively to the best of your ability out of the right ear. It's like instead of hearing taking place in surround sound, I am choosing to only intake from the right speaker. I can do this. I can get close. I can get far away. I can listen to the sounds far away. For me, I automatically want to close my eyes because I'm highly visual. So I have to close my eyes to listen. And then instead, shift and see if you can listen more out of your left ear. Maybe you want to do a little of this, a little of this, a little of this. And then see if you can listen out of both ears. Listening for what's above you or below you, in front of you. You can always create something to listen to. Does one side settle you? Does one side make you anxious? What's it feel like to tap into and be very aware of the sensation of the auditory sensation of receiving sound. How does that make you feel? What does that bring up in your body or in your experience? If you want to drop something in the chat, great. Last thing, I invite you to begin to stroke your arm, pet, or you can tap. And today we're going to get even more specific. This is sort of what we were playing with on Wednesday, right? Today I want to introduce you to some stylized version of that. We're going to resource a methodology called havening. So in havening, typically if you're doing it with a practitioner, they would stroke, caress, or tap your arm for you so you can feel what it feels like to receive that sensation until you can eventually learn how to do it on your own. Well, I'm not there with you. So we are going to have to jump ship and sort of have you figure out what it feels like. So here's what I want you to do. In havening, there are some very important portions of your body that receive touch in a very stress reset regulating way. First one is going to be your face. So I want you to just decide, where on my face am I going to touch and stroke and caress? Does it need to be firm, as we were playing with the other day, or soft, as we were playing with? Does it need to be the stroke? Does it need to be a hold? Does it need to be a tap? Meaning, what one feels the best for you? I can't tell you that. You've got to decide on your own. What is the thing that feels good in the moment? If it doesn't feel good to have your face touched, don't do it. We have other places. The other places include upper arm. So I'm just going to take and kind of stroke one arm. You can do it over clothing, or you can do it sort of on bare skin. You can do it on the inside of the arm, the outside, or you can do it on your hands. Just kind of touching, caressing the hands. They can hold. They can tap, they can stroke. Just notice. Does that regulate you? Is that a feeling that you like? Now, those are the common havening. I'm someone who really loves the inside of my arm. Like, this is how some people would love like a foot massage or a back massage. Like, just do this for me. Like, if I could pay for like an hour of someone just touching my hand and my forearm, like that would be money well spent. So everyone is different. These are common areas. These are the protocoled areas. Or you might have somewhere on you that feels better, more regulated to touch, more resetting. So just notice that. And does it need to be firm? Does it need to be soft? Now, I love these havening touching things because I'm all about taking implicit things that we do on accident, things that were just happening, and transitioning them into tools. And if you think about being shocked or stressed or receiving news, every single one of us does something like this, either or something like this, or some sort of fidgeting thing. Babies in cradles will do stuff like this. Children do it. Dogs like to be pet in these places. These are generic places that we receive therapeutic touch very, very, very easily, and there's a resetting quality. More so, I wanted to get you in the thought process of do I receive things visually, auditory, touch? How do I receive things? What am I most connected to? How can I wake up and enliven my body? Now we're going to make a transition, and we're going to now distinctly connect brain to body, or mind to body, and body to mind through a somatic meditation that I came up with a few years ago. This one is based on embryology. And if you are here, you and I all of us here together went through the same exact embryologic process. It's the only thing we have, it's the only lived experience that we have in common. Before we were born, cells cleaved and folded and attached and evolved into who you are and who I am in exactly the same way, pathologies aside. So tapping into that lived experience long before you have a mental process or a memory of that lived experience, your cells know it. Your DNA knows it. Your soul knows it. We all went through it together. So regressing or paying attention to or being with this meditation will often help take us back to a time before we had trauma, stress, and anxiety. And it's a really good thing for hip pain, for back pain, for stress, and all sorts of stuff. I'll quit talking now and invite you into this meditation. Here we go. You got to be sitting on something relatively firm. Could be a bench, could be a chair. Find something relatively firm. Soft couches and cushiony things don't work well. Then find a place for your feet to also be rested on something. If you don't have that, sit on the floor, crisscross legged, whatever works for you. Now, the two bones you're sitting on there are your sit bones. They're a portion of your pelvis. And I want you to just be aware of the two sit bones. You have a right side and you have a left side. Are you sitting in a way that you are aware that you have the two sit bones? If not, adjust now. Then I invite you to squeeze together the two sit bones. You're going to notice it's like a pelvic floor contraction. And then I want you to relax, yield, let go, and allow the two sit bones to get wide, which may adjust your posture a little bit. You can actively contract, narrow, make smaller your two sit bones. And I'm being very clear with this language. You have to allow, let go, yield into wide sit bones. You can't make it happen. You got to allow it. You can make the narrowing happen, but you got to allow the widening. Once they are as wide as they can be, allow your sit bones to be wide. It may feel awkward. It may feel different. It may feel really good for you. Allowing the sit bones to be really, really wide. Good. Now, I like to have my eyes closed here, but you can have your eyes open. It's up for you to decide with your wide sit bones. Pay attention to the tailbone and the space directly in between the two sit bones. Tailbone, pubic bone, the perineum between the two. And allow that space to get really wide. It's like the whole base of what you're sitting on just dilates wider. Take a few breaths into that. Feel your feet planted. Feel how the ground has risen up to support you via the chair or the bench. The world is meeting you. Your job is to receive the support and dilate wide. I'll talk about why this is important in the question and answer afterwards. Right now, just trust that dilating wide is very important for stress management. Then invite you to pay attention to the space between your two eyebrows, and you can kind of furl them together and then relax them, right? Bring them narrow and tight and then relax them. Like you can't make them wider. It's a relax release. You can make them narrower and then relax, release. Now, can you go or imagine behind the eyebrows, behind the cranium, into the brain space directly between your two eyebrows? Now, if it helps, you can cue the eyebrows to go narrow and wide, or you can imagine that space in your brain getting really narrow and then really wide. Really narrow, really wide. My sit bones are wide, and can you allow that brain space to get really, really wide? Take a couple of breaths into that. Maybe your breath feels even wider. What we're working with here is the bottom and the top of what's called the primitive streak, or how our cells, two cells came together that eventually became you. Starts at the bottom, streaks up to the top. Base of the pelvis, pineal gland at the top. All of us went through that same process. That space in between want you to now feel the space rising up from between your two sit bones up to that brain space we were just paying attention to. That's your nervous system. It's the central nervous system, spinal cord up into the brain. Can you just sense the distance between the top and the bottom? And can that distance get wide and soft? So that you're acutely aware of your base, the top, and the space in between. Now, for some of you, that might be enough, and stay there and enjoy that. Or if that's your midline, if that's the center of you, can you now begin to pay attention to that midline and reference it to the space to your right, inside of your body? Can you feel that midline and how much space you have in between that midline and the inside of the outer body, meaning towards the right rib cage, from up top towards the right ear, the bottom towards the right hip? Can you feel that space? In your imagination, is that space 5 inches? Is it 10 inches? Is it 12 inches? 30 inches? What's the space? How big is that space to the right? Can that right sit bone get even wider? The right eyebrows get even wider? Then begin to sense the space outside of you within the room. Can you sense from the midline to the right wall? Without looking at it, how far are you away from your right wall? Is it 10 inches? Is it 2 feet? 10 feet? Bigger or less? Without having to look, guesstimate. How tall is the ceiling on the right? What's in the room on the right? What furniture? Who is over there? Could you describe it without having to look at it? It's like you're tuning in to that space. Now, how about beyond that wall? Maybe it's north facing, east facing, west facing, south. What's beyond that wall? What's in the yard or the next room over? How about beyond that? How about the next street over? The next town over? The next state or ocean or mountain? What's beyond in that way? And then can you come back into the room and come back into your body? And just compare. How does right side feel versus left side? You notice anything? Then repeating that over on the left side, paying attention to the midline, into the body. It's like I'm just choosing to pay attention. Does that left side feel more narrow or more wide than the right side did? Are you more or less aware of it? I'm going to put a little asterisk here. Most of us are less aware of our left side, and that's fine. Then how about to the edge of the room? What do you sense or notice there? Are you closer or further away over there? What's in that room? Who is over there? And then how about beyond that, to the next room, to the next house, to the next city, state, whatever it is? Do you have the ability to now pay attention to both sides, right and left, in your own body? How about outside of your body in the room that you're in? How about beyond the room you're in? Without looking, how close to the ceiling are you? What's behind you right now and in front of you? What's underneath you? How far down into the ground can you sense? The floor below you? If there's another level below you, can you sense down into that? Or can you sense down into the earth and the dirt? Grounding yourself there. It's like a peripheral bubble. What do you hear in that bubble? What does your imagination see? Then when you're ready, open your eyes, if they're not already, and staying very aware of the width and the depth of your bubble, just begin to orient yourself in the space. Can you stay aware of the room that you're not even looking at as you begin to look? It's like a sixth sense of just knowing where you're at. When you're ready, you can come back into your body. And you can choose to leave wide, open, deep, tall, whatever you want, or you can come back into your body if that feels safer. Just a little meditation for you. Now, as promised, I'll stick around for a little bit. First thing I want to cover is sit bones and why I find that to be so important. So if you're interested in that, stick around. If not, I'll join you next week for more Move Lab and more Stress Reset. Thank you, everybody. Okay. So the reason, so let's talk about the sit bone things. I go to sleep during this, right? It's really hard sometimes. That's a really good thing to pay attention to there. Often we only know to function in two modes, right? Either I'm in sympathetic effort mode or I'm asleep. That stillness, that what is called non-sleep deep rest, is so important. More studies have shown that non-sleep deep rest, so things like meditation, things like yoga nidra, things like embodiment exercises, somatic exercises, help us to improve our immune system, wake up creativity in the body. And if you have access to being in deep relationship with non-sleep deep rest, you actually go to sleep quicker and sleep better all night long. And so it's being able to be comfortable and aware and present with that dusk feeling in the body. So you're not weird that you fall asleep. That is very common. It takes practice to be with awareness within that. Now, the sit bone thing, this came to me. I want you to, I heard a long time ago that alligators, when they get scared, when there is danger, what an alligator will do, crocodiles as well, what they'll do is they will purge and submerge. They will throw up or out the back end everything that's in their system, and then they will submerge underwater for hours until danger has passed by. You and I all have a reptilian portion of our brain that is that dorsal vagal system thing. And I want you to think about this. All of us have different experiences that give us the butterfly feeling. Some of us, it's public speaking, right? Like that's a very common one. You have to go on stage in front of 100+ people. How do you feel? You either have a important conversation with your loved one, like you're going to break up with them, or you've got finances, like that kind of conversation. How do you feel? You're at an amusement park and you hate roller coasters and you're looking at it and you know you've got to go, how do you feel? It's that purge and submerge. You get kind of upset to your stomach. You may feel like you have to let it out the back end. We have the same setup, right? Which is a stress reflex in the body. Well, when you have that, right, there is no way you can dilate your sit bones open. There is no way you can relax your pelvic floor and your belly and your face, because something bad could come out one way or the other. Convincing your physiology that you are safe enough to relax and dilate open convinces your nervous system that things are okay. It's also helpful with hip function. So many pelvic floor incontinence issues are not more Kegel exercises, the better. It's how much more relaxed and tonified can they be. It helps with low back and sacral pain. So there's lots of physical stuff, but the important thing for me is how it relates stress-wise and how it settles the nervous system. I can tell you for a fact that if you find yourself in an argument or in a conversation where you need some settled authority in it, sitting and feeling your sit bones widen changes how you are present in those moments. It is nearly impossible to be in an argument and dilate your sit bones open. You suddenly find yourself going, oh, this is not important to argue anymore. When you're in an important meeting, or with someone, receiving news, dilating open makes you more aware. So I've said over and over and over again, if I only leave one legacy in all of the movement world, I hope it is wide sit bones. And that is the epicenter of that meditation. So hopefully you enjoyed it.
Great. Yes. Thank you so much. That's actually something that I've noticed sometimes when I'm driving.
Yeah.
I'm like, why, I'm so tense in my hips and everything. It's like, okay, I've got to, relax it all, widen it out. I've got to stop, creating that tension.
Right.
So that's because of you. I think I started doing that a couple of years ago. So I definitely notice it when I'm driving, because that's when you're like, you're just static, and then you're just holding your stress in, not realizing, what.
And with that too, where my stress shows up when I'm driving is my eyes. Okay. Like I'm blessed in that I have really good vision. I don't wear contacts or glasses, but if I have to drive, like if I'm driving down to LA, or if I'm driving to the Bay Area and back and forth, by the end of the day, this eye in particular is like beet red. They're dry. They're kind of achy. And for years I thought, oh, maybe it's air conditioner, it's air. But what it is when you're in the car, I am so focused on what is in front of me that my eyes are overly efforting to see and stare in front of me instead of receive and dilate open. So my practice when I'm driving is not necessarily wide sit bones. That's sort of an all the time practice. Mine is wide vision when I'm driving, because it also changes how you are in relationship with the road.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good point. Good point. Wow, cool. All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. I think we got to all the questions. Have a great weekend. And thank you, Raymond, for helping us out today. And we will see you Tuesday for Move Lab.
Great. Cool. Okay. And in the meantime, Alicia, I'll see you in just a little bit at the dog park.
I'll see you in a few minutes. We're going to have a puppy play date.
We sure are.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.